No. Could you see the screen? Okay, let's just try this again. Sorry, I don't know what's going on today. It seems like everything is not intact. My computer was updated and now everything is not in place. Okay, maybe you will be able to see the whole presentation now. Still not. I want to go on presentation mode. Okay, I think it's better now. It looks right now. Okay, so to come back to the ratio analysis, the main financial statements of any business will be to actually make use of your profit and loss, also your cash flow statement, and your statement of financial position. Okay, so this is now why do we have financial statements? What do we do with it? Why do we want this? This is actually to report on your financial health in your business, and also to see when you grow and how much you grow. Then, as I've mentioned just now, the statements that we will make use of, the statement of financial position, also the statement of profit and loss or loss, and then the cash flow statement. So why are these important then? We've touched on that now when we said that it is important for our financial health. So 5 things. It gives us an indication of the profitability, liquidity, and also solvability of the business. Also, they present a standardized view of the business's financial position or the market share then. They help to compare the business performance. And then also, that could also be market share. They track the performance trends. And then the last one, they determine the loan eligibility of the business. So if you want to maybe borrow more money from your financial institution because your business actually grew in such a way that you have to make use of more space, or maybe you have to start your own little factory or something like that. This is then what they will use this money for, growth capital. If you can still remember from N4. Okay, so the financial statements needs to be analyzed to determine the profitability, solvability, and also liquidity of the business. So just remember, I'm sure you know this, but just to touch on the important stuff, and this is then where we look at the bottom there on page 191, ratio is when one figure is expressed in terms of another. Okay, so example there, we have a total number of entrepreneurship students in a college is then 900, where the total number of students in the whole college is 2,700 students. So the ratio for entrepreneurship students will then be, 900 to the 2,700 of the whole college. So we can talk here about a ratio then of 1 to 3. Okay, so how to express this in percentage? 900 divided by 2,700 times 100, because we want to work out a percentage, and that will then give you 33%. Okay, just a reminder. So the ratio at the following sections will then be discussed now, as we've mentioned them already. I just want to go through page 192 quickly, where we are looking at the element of statement of profit, financial position, and also statement of profit and loss. I'm not sure if you guys did this in N4. You should have, because it's part of the curriculum. If not, if so, please just go through that again as a reminder or a refresher of the specific financial position. And then if not, we will do this, I think, later in this module as well. Okay, so the profitability ratio, that's the first one we're going to look at the bottom of page 192. So the main aim of most of the business is obviously to make a profit. You only start a business to make a profit. So the ratio analysis will then determine the profitability of the business. Okay, so to calculate the profit of the business, you calculate the gross profit and the net profit. That is what you're going to work out. So example on page 193, this was also done in N4, so I'm not going to go through this. This was your module 4, I think. Then the kinds of profitability, this is where we analyze two types. The first one is the return on assets, or ROA. Then with this one, you will divide the net profit before tax by the total assets. So the ROA will then indicate how well the business is doing in relation to the overall resources that they have. And then the total value of the assets is in the statement of financial position, and they consist of the current assets plus any fixed assets, which is the non-current assets. And then you will get an answer in percentage. Okay, so let us look at table 8.9, the information that you use to calculate the ROA. Okay, so the net profit or income, we know that gross profit we work out by deducting your cost of sales from your sales. And then the net profit will be obviously then your gross profit plus any other income minus your expenses. This is in full work. Then your total assets, the formula is then your non-current assets, non-current, land and building equipment, and also vehicles, plus your current assets. That is your inventory, also your trades, receivables, and then also cash, which could be cash in the bank, cash float, and also petty cash including there. Then the formula for ROA is then your net profit before you deduct the taxes divided by your total assets. Multiply with 100 to work out a percentage. So an example will be there on bottom of page 194. Sorry, let me just... Here we have PJ Clothing, and they have then a statement of profit and loss. As we said, the gross profit, net profit. Next page, page 195. This is now where we have the non-current assets, where we have a land and building and also equipment. So that adds up to 380,000. Then the current assets, your inventory, trade, receivables, and also your cash. That adds up to 730,000. Okay, so how to then work out your ROA? We said the formula is net profit before tax divided by your total assets multiplied with 100. So the total assets will be your fixed assets plus the current assets. Now, we looked at the profit and loss briefly. So if you just want to find out what your net profit before tax is, that is what you will find there under your operating expenses. The figure there, 367,000 Rand. Okay, and then your assets, your fixed assets, that ones you will find on the non-current assets on page 195, as well as the current assets. Okay, so if you add those two up, you will get 1,110,000. And then we said the net profit is under the operating expenses on page 194. So the 367 divided by 1,000 divided by 1 3,110,000 multiply with 100 will give you 33%. Okay, so this is now the assets that you invested in the business to actually make this business profitable, 33%. So should you go to a bank and you want to maybe buy new equipment or you want to add equipment or assets, then they might just approve this loan because you are only standing on 33% in this specific business. Then the next one, page 196, is your return on investment. I know we've touched on this in N4 as well. This referred to is also referred to as your return on equity. This is then the return of your owner that the owner makes on the capital investment, and the percentage is then compared with the current interest rate and should be considerably higher to justify keeping the business going. It's better to compare the percentage with the previous year as well. Okay, so you must always reflect back to that. Okay, table 8.10, we've got then the ROI. How to work this out? We're going to start with the net profit again, the gross profit, net profit, and then capital. This is then the capital in your statement of financial position that we have there on page 192. Right? Just note that you use capital as at the beginning of the year, not the owner's equity. Okay. And then the owner's equity is a capital plus your profit minus your drawings. So the ROI is then the formula net profit before tax, again, that 367,000, and then divided by your capital at the beginning of the year, as we've mentioned just now. Okay, so at this point, if you go to page 195, you will find the capital there, and that is before the tax was deducted, 428,000. Okay, and then multiply with 100 to actually get a percentage. So the return on investment is then 85.75%. So this business is very profitable, as you can see. The return on investment, the money that they get back, is on 85%. If the current interest rate is 10%, it is then taken into account, and then the business is doing extremely well because I said you must compare it to the current interest rate. Then liquidity is the next one. Oops, that was a bit too far. Okay, so with liquidity ratio, we use the current assets to pay back the current liabilities. So the current assets are then listed in a sequence of liquidity, how they have been converted into cash. That is what liquidity means. So read from the bottom upwards. And then the cash, like your cash float, petty cash, is also readily available. And then the trade receivables, your debtors, they are bound by an agreement to pay within a certain period of time. As we know, that will also then, it's uncertain whether and when inventory stock will be converted into cash. And then also because it depends on the business, how profitable you are. The money is used to pay the short-term or current liabilities, like your bank overdraft, the short-term loan, and also the trade payables. That is now your creditors. So the business must have working or operating capital to stay liquid. Working capital, we've done this in N4 as well, is the total value of your current assets minus your total value of your current liabilities. And there's also a little bit of a layout there on page 197 for you with the current assets and the current liabilities listed. Okay, so the note there in the middle of page 197 regarding the different capital or operating capital that you can go through on your own, please. And then we have two calculations for determining the liquidity of a business. The first one is the current ratio, and then the second one is the asset test ratio. So the current ratio is then where indicates how well the current assets cover the claims against the assets, like your current short-term liabilities. The formula includes the current assets, and the ratio should at least be 2 to 1, meaning for every R1 of short-term debt, which is your current liabilities, the business should have R2 to pay it off. The formula is then your current assets to the ratio of your current liabilities. Then the asset test ratio, it indicates the real liquid assets. So this excludes inventory. It consists of trade receivables and also cash on hand, as we've mentioned previously, the bank, the cash float, and also your petty cash. So the ratio should be at least 1 to 1. So for every R1 of the short-term debt, you must have R1 to pay this off. Okay. Then the formula is the total current assets minus your inventory to the ratio of the current liabilities. Or then the current assets, which is your trade receivables plus cash, to the ratio of the current liabilities. Okay. Then next up is then the two valuable indicators that will be used for the account receivable turnover rate and also the inventory turnover rate, page 198. Okay, so with this ones, the account receivable turnover rate, this measures how many times a business can turn its trade receivables or the debtors into cash during the financial year. It also indicates the average number of days it takes to collect money from a trade receivable or debtor. Formula there, your accounts receivable turnover rate. So your average credit sales divided by your average trades receivables. And then you will work out the average collection period, which is we set for the year, so 365, divided by the accounts receivable turnover rate that we've worked out just previously. And that will then tell you in days how many times that will happen. Then the inventory turnover rate. This is now an indication of the number of times on average the business has sold the entire inventory during the year. This will indicate whether the business is overstocked, which is a very good thing to actually do so that you can keep track of that as well. And not maybe for the next year plan not to overstock you again, because remember that is dead stock. That doesn't mean anything. Okay, so the inventory turnover rate or the stock, this is a formula, cost of sales. This is how you work it out, divided by your average inventory. And then the number of days, we say 365, divided by your inventory turnover rate that you've worked out just now. And that will also give you an answer in days. Okay. Let us go to page 200, where we are going to do this, just work through the example. Not break even yet. Sorry, guys. Okay, so let us just look at how this is going to work so that you understand what I'm saying. Okay, so we've got example there on page 199, example 8.12. Now, we've worked through quite a few things now, so let us just get numbers so that you can understand. No? Do the following calculations, asset test ratio. This is then the current assets divided by to the ratio of your current liabilities. Now, the current assets, we said excluding inventory. Now, go back to the current assets on page 197. So here we said now the current assets on page 199 will be the total. So obviously 730 minus, what is it, 280,000, the inventory. We said we can't count that in. Okay, so then you will get, okay, to the ratio of your current liabilities. Current liabilities, it's at the bottom, and that is 314,000. So if you work that out, you will then get a ratio of 1.43 to 1. So this now means that the current assets are less than 1. So you still divide the assets by the liabilities. So you will end with an answer of 0.83 to 1. This means that the business is not liquid. Okay? So you can't liquidate it. Then we've got the current ratio. This one was on, still on page, on page 197. So here with this one, we said the current assets is still 730,000 and our current liabilities is still 314,000. So this means then for 1 rand the business owes, it has 2 rand 32 cents with which to pay the debt. So this is actually the ratio is then at 2 to 1. Okay, question 2. Does the business have enough cash to pay its debts according to the asset test ratio? That was the first one that we worked out. Yes, the ratio is above 1. So the business has enough money to pay off its current debt. But remember, we said it's not, we cannot liquidate it. Okay, then number 3, calculate the net profit capital. And here we have our current assets minus our current liabilities, and that will then give you your working capital of 416,000. Then the accounts receivable turnover rate formula, we said, this is the one on the board, average credit sales divided by average trade receivables. So the average credit sales is 362,000. And our average trade receivables is 152,000. Okay. Then you will get 2.41 times. So this means the turnover rate will be twice, almost 2.5 times. Then the average collection period, we said 365, and then divide by the 2.41, and you will get then 151.5 days. So every 151 days, the the customers will have then to pay their accounts. So that is normally 30 to 60 days that is granted. Then they start either paying interest or they will remind you. Then number 5, calculate the inventory turnover rate. We've done that one just now as well. So the cost of sales, 488. That is at page 199, our cost of sales. Mine divided by your average inventory, the 280 under the current assets, and that will then give you 1.74 times. And then to work out the days, 365 for 1 year, and the inventory turnover rate, that is what we've worked out just now, 1.74. So this means that every 209.8, so you can round it off to 210 days, the inventory will be, all of it will be totally sold out. Okay, next up is break-even point. Now you all know what that is. We also went through the units. I'm not going to go through this. This is in 4 work. You can just read through this again to refresh your mind. Yeah. Even WAGP on page 207. Okay, so what I want to get to is then the control of technology. So technology is used in almost all the fields of a business, including transport, manufacturing, communication, improving its services and also products. So technology can be expensive and it must be updated very often. So that is why it is expensive. We all know what the latest phone costs. Technology is found in the external environment and can therefore be either posed as a threat, because if you're not updated or up to date with your technology, or you don't update your technology regarding systems or things that your customers want, then obviously your market share is in the loop. Okay, so we have the different industries here, industrial revolution theories actually. The first one is actually quite interesting to see where we came from. The first industrial revolution was back in the day, which started in England, where they started manufacturing some of the machinery. So mechanization was the first thing, the steam power, if we just think about trains and also other mechanisms that they've actually designed in the clothing industry, where they've started weaving clothes and then by using steam or then wood bricks or then wood to just have fuel for those big machines. Then weaving looms, that's what I said just now. Then this is in Industry 1 or Industrial Revolution 1. Then the second one was then the mass production. This is how everything started to be produced in bulk. So the assembling line started, and then electrical energy was also included. No more steam power. Then industrial area 3. This is then the automation part and also the computers that was discussed. So this was in 1969. Oh, I forgot to tell you what the dates was. So industrial area 1 was 1784. Industrial area 2, 1870, and then the industrial area 3, 1969, and then the industrial area 4, This is now today. The cyber physical systems, internet, and also networks for everything. Okay, now why technology need to be controlled? Now, I want you to go through this on your own, otherwise you're going to definitely fall off your chairs. Most of these things are not new to you. So table 8.12, going on to page on page 209, also going on to page 211. This is just the dangers and threats for every item, computers, fax machines. We don't even use that anymore. Telephones, cell phones, and then also photocopiers. Then what I want to get to is the inventory or the stock control. This referred to our debt capital that we spoke about earlier. So the reasons for this are that it costs money to store inventory. Now, inventory should rather be on the sales floor being sold. Otherwise, it can be stolen, or it can get out of date, or it can go out of fashion. You might also have a situation where you've lost your guarantee on that, and that is not a good thing at all. Okay, so the business should avoid the risk of running out of inventory. That is obviously the other side. Or then having too much. So safety stock should be one of the things that you must keep in mind. And this will be stock that you will have just for in case you have an unexpected change in the demand. So why is inventory control important then? We have every business should have its efficient inventory control system. That is very important. So for the following reasons, to prevent running out of raw material for manufacturers, that could be disastrous if you have to stop a plant because there's no raw material, and also meets changes in demand for the product. So if the products change, it needs to be updated, prevent out of inventory situations. And then also speed up order processes in the warehouse, alert the operational manager when to reorder items, also to keep up to date records of inventory levels, and then to keep track of your sales pattern, informing the future decisions regarding a specific product. Okay, so we have different types of inventory. We've got the raw material, which you know that this is the ones that you will start off with if you manufacture any product. And then we've got the work in progress. That is goods that are partially completed. And then we've got the finished goods, which is then ready to sell. Okay, then inventory control policy. This involves ensuring the right goods are delivered in the correct quantity, also the correct quality and the correct time or the right time. The invoice at the is then on the agreed price, and to ensure that the inventory control, the proper inventory control policy has been in place. Also, aspects that needs to be included here is the quantities, reorder point, and then also inventory that requires special attention. Okay, so let us look at quantities quickly. Consider the type of the inventory, also reorder point, and how much the safety stock you need to not run out of stock. Quantities of the inventory take that into account that you have not expired products. Keeping inventory control card. That one is on page 213, where you will see that there's a date, first of all, the name of the item, Then the reorder level, the vendor information, that means the date, the document reference, the detail of expiring dates, also the number of items received, the number of items issued or taken out, and then the current inventory level. This is most of the times just computerized, obviously, because we are in the 4th industrial revolution. Then reorder, the point ROP is a specific quantity level at which your inventory needs to be reloaded. It tells you when to place an order so that you don't run out of inventory. And then the factors of lead time. I'm sure you know what that is because you have sales as a subject. That is the time between placing an order and then when you receive it from your suppliers. That also can have an effect, and that is why you need safety stock. So on page 213, inventory that receives special attention. This is now we look at expiry dates and also warranties that expires. You can include products here like medicine, food, health products, and then other items could also be things that needs attention, like your high value items, designer jewelry that is very expensive, scheduled medicine, and then also seasonal items like clothing. Okay, then the types of inventory costs. That is at the bottom of page 213. Are there people sleeping? Please, we can't sleep, guys. I know this is not the most interesting part, but we're almost done. Keep the inventory is a costly exercise because you have to include various types of costs. Okay, so the different types of costs that we've spoken about here is then the purchasing cost. This is a price that you are charged by a supplier. Then your carrying cost. This is the cost of storage or insurance, theft, depreciation, and also your cost of capital. Ordering costs. This is the expenses that incurred when creating and processing an order for a supplier. Additional inventory costs to consider. Setup costs. This is a cost that is incurred every time that you place an order with your supplier, and then the shortage cost. This is what you have if you have too much inventory, you tie up your cash. Okay, next up is in the economic order quantities or EUQ, sorry. This is then the formula that the inventory managers use to determine the ideal order size. Okay, so you will see it there on page 214. We've got a whole layout there of symbols that need to be used. I would like you to please go through that. On the right-hand side, you will see there is the whole layout of how to calculate this. So we've got formulas, the economic order quantity, and also the reorder point, and the total cost per annum. Okay, this is under the fixed order quantities. And then under the fixed time period, we have the formula there as well at the bottom. Okay, so the example, maybe you want to make a few notes here. Use the following information to calculate 3 things. The first one is economic order quantity. So for that, we need to go back to page 214, where we look at the first formula there. Okay, so the information that they will give you is the annual demand, also the average daily demand, the order cost, and holding cost, lead time, and then also the cost per unit. So for number 1, economic order quantities, maybe you want to make a few notes for yourself here. We've got the Q then, what is the quantity, and then square root 2 times the D is what? Annual demand. Annual demand in this case is 2,000. Then multiply with 10. 10 is your setup costs. Okay, divided by 2.5, which is then H, the cost of storing each unit. Okay, so the calculations, then next to the second step, 2, and then in brackets 2,000, so meaning that 2 times 2,000 is 4,000 times 10,000. That's going to give you 40,000 divided by 2.5, and that will give you a square root of 16, and then you will get an answer of 126.49 units. Then the second one, reorder point. Here we have also the 200, which is then the annual demand, and then the lead time is the 10. Okay, divided by 365. So that will give you then 54.79 units. Then the total costs, we've got a formula there, annual purchase cost plus your annual ordering cost plus your annual holding cost, and that will then give you 2,000 times 25, which will give you 50,000 plus your 2,000 times 10 divided by 126.49, the quantity that we've worked out in number 1. And then also add the quantity times the 2.5, which was then the cost of storage per unit divided by 2. That will give you then 50,000 plus the 158.12 plus the 158.11. And that will then give you a total of 50,316.23. Okay, so next up is then the calculation for the fixed time period on page 216. This is the last calculations. So the inventory calculation for the fixed time period, we have daily demand at an ice cream shop is then 30 units. And then the review time is 30 days and the lead time is 7 days. There are 460 ice creams in stock at the beginning of the review period. So calculate how many ice cream servings the shop should order. Okay, so quantity, we said now, and now this is part of your fixed time. So this is the bottom calculations. No? So the Q is then the quantity. The D is the forecast average demand for your unit over the period of the length of time and also the lead time. So that is why you are going to then add all of that together to get 30. No? 30 is the days. And then your 30 days plus your, no, sorry, the first 30 is a unit. So the ones in brackets is the 30 days, and then the 7 days is the lead time, minus the amount of ice creams, 460. That will then give you 650 ice creams that they must still order. Okay, size of safety stock. We've spoken about the safety stock just now. That is the additional inventory that you need to keep on hand to make sure that you don't run out of stock. We have a few factors here. The first one is the uncertainty in demand forecast, which is always a difficult thing because you don't have a clue what is going to happen in the next week. You're selling ice creams. If it's raining or it's getting colder, people might not buy ice creams anymore. So compile a sales budget as for the operational budgets to determine the inventory level. And then also you can manufacture the needs. A manufacturer also needs to take the seasonal trends into account, what I've mentioned just now, and also the different to forecast demand, where there's a sudden rise in the price of the raw materials, and then the price of the final product may lower the demand. The new product, if there is any, there's various products that the manufacturers from cannabis. Can you still remember we spoke about that one? They may lead to a sudden increase in demand. Now it seems like cannabis is not going to be allowed to be sold anymore anyway. So I wonder if that's going to go. It's going if that is going to be going through court. Okay, then higher the higher the uncertainty of proper forecast, the higher the amount of safety cost that you need to carry, because this is now getting a higher risk. Then the next one, probability in the delays from the supplier. If you have delays, it's going to have an effect on you, on your business. It's uncontrollable. So there's nothing that you can do about that. If there are any strikes or unforeseen circumstances, we've spoken about that in previous module as well. Threats, this is in part of your threats, external environmental threats, which might result in a loss for you as a business. And then make provision for your safety stock for possible delays from the supplier. Lead times of the supplier. This is now when we've spoken about lead time, you know what this is. And then who your suppliers is, and also maybe reordering goods need to be need to be imported. Also, if that is the situation, it's going to take longer. No? Inventory that the supplier have themselves, also the demand for the inventory that you order, that is all going to have effect on lead time. Depends on whether you your order first needs to be manufactured. That's also going to spend a lot of time in delay. Then the longer the lead time, or then the more safety stock you need, which you might also then at some time run out of. Cost of safety stock. You need to find a balance where you have enough but not too much stock. Remember, we said this is dead capital, and there's no guarantee that you are going to sell this. So keeping too much inventory might also then mean that you have to pay a warehouse now, as well as insurance costs. So it's important to find a balance. Credit control, page 218. Most businesses buy on credit or are then granted credit to their customers. So you have to control this credit so that your business remains liquid. This has enough, you must have enough cash to pay your own current liabilities as well. Then a credit control involves the financial control system to ensure that the credit is only offering to reliable customers so that you who will pay the debt. Okay, then the credit policy. You've got the credit period is normally 30 days. The credit standard is the maximum amount on credits. That's going to differ depending on the customer as well as the business kind or type. Collection policy. How are you going to get this money from your debtors? And then the discounts that you can use as motivation. So, for instance, if your customers pay within 20 days, you can give them 5% discount. Then the cost of credit. This is then where you grant credit to your customers. You must obviously have a good record keeping of those who will pay or who pay. And then also you're going to have to keep in mind that you are going to have telephone costs involved phoning the people who are not paying. Tied up capital. This is then where the debtors from part of the network capital forms part of network capital. So this capital tied up as it is not cash that is in your bank. Then irrecoverable debts or bad debt. Now, this unfortunately you have to write off at this stage. And then the lost interest. Lost interest, this is where the business deals with the trade receivables who still need to pay. So they lose potential interest earned on cash. Then the follow-up costs. This will be again for phone calls, debt tracking. Maybe you must appoint someone now, like a debt collector, sending out notices to pay, and also legal costs involved. Okay, so this is then module 8. It was a very long module. I think we will definitely go through the summary there on page 220 by yourself, please. And then we will definitely work through, I think I said question 6. So you can start with that one so long. And then also question 7. So that we can cover this as well. Okay, so question 6 and question 7. Thank you.